Hello everyone, this is a good day to talk about date and time. We will start with the ticks value. A ticks value is the number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970 at midnight and in the GMT time zone. We must use long variables to store a ticks value due to its large size. The ticks value itself is not affected by the time zone. I'm getting the current time. Let's run it. This is the current number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. As long as the clock is set correctly, we will get the same value anywhere in the world because it's the same number of milliseconds since we start counting. The ticks value itself is not very interesting. However, we can easily convert it to a string. This is done with the date or time methods. Let's see. This is the date component and this is the time. The date and time returned are based on the current time zone. This is the same date and time that I will see in my clock. The same methods can be used directly in the smart string literal like this. Date, time, time, and a combination of date and time. The output format is set with the date format and time format properties. And there is a small link here, you can click on it. This page explains the various modifiers. You can see that the default format is hour in 24 hours format, minutes and seconds. Note that the case is important. If you set it to lowercase to uppercase m, then it will be months instead of minutes. Let's add milliseconds to the format. And we can see it over here. I'm now going to talk about a common mistake. It's not so simple to understand it. I'll do my best to explain it. Let's say that you want to create a countdown timer to count to the next hour. We know that ticks are measured in milliseconds. I'm creating a variable like this. 3600 seconds multiplied by 1000 to make it milliseconds, or instead I can use ticks per hour. This is the same thing. I want to show it in a nice string that the user will see. We will use a timer. I will not implement it over here, but you can use a timer to update it and show a countdown clock. So you are writing it like this. Time. And we expect it to show 1 hour. And it shows 3 hours. And there are probably 20 posts in the forum about this problem. Let's log time left. The value is correct. This number represents a very specific point in time, and it is 1 hour past midnight at January 1st, 1970, based on the GMT time zone. My time zone is GMT plus 2. So that specific point of time converted to my time zone is 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock AM. One possible workaround, which you should never use, is to reset the time zone. Now it shows what we intended it to show. However, now we lost the time zone, and in any other place where we want to use date or time, it will show the wrong value. So don't do it. The problem here is that the time method, this one or this one, they are the same, does a very specific thing. It converts real ticks to a string. In our case, the value is not really a ticks value. It's only milliseconds. It's a period, not tied to any specific date. Instead, we should use a sub named convert milliseconds to string. You can search for it. And we find it here. This method expects milliseconds, number of milliseconds, and it converts it to a nice string. Let's try it. Like this. And it works, and we didn't need to change our time zone or to fly to some other place, and everything is good. We can use date parse, time parse, or date time parse to parse a date string and turn it into ticks. The format expected is based on the same date and time formats. We can check this value with as you can see, it returned the correct date at midnight and in my time zone. This means that the actual number of ticks in this case will be different based on the user time zone. We can use time parse to parse a time string, and the date will be set to today. And we can use date time parse to combine both a date component and a time component. Note that the date format can include both a date component and a time component. I've showed it in the web services tutorial. If you have a string that contains both components, then it will be easier to parse it with date parse and a date format that includes both the date and the time. Date and time arithmetics, when a calendar is involved, do not work. Let's say that we want to find the number of days, hours, minutes, and seconds till this date. We can try to find the days with codes such as and based on this value, we can find the other components. However, with this approach, we will never get an exact result, and the reason is that it ignores time zone changes. In many countries, there are 2 days where the time zone changes because of the daylight saving time, the DST, and this code ignores it. Now, on these 2 days, the number of hours will be either 25 hours or 23 hours. If we want to also add months to the result, then it gets even more complicated. And the bottom line is that we should use the dateutils library. It is available in all 3 platforms and it is written in B4X. It is a code module, so we don't need to initialize anything. Period object, period between, start date, and let's try it. And it returns 4 months, 8 days, 7 hours, 4 minutes, and 26 seconds. We can also add a period to a date like this. We can initialize it, though it will work without it as well. We want to add 5 days to the current time. Add period. If we try to do the same thing with then it will seem to work properly. Let's start with 50 days. And you can see that the time has jumped in 1 hour because somewhere between now and this date the time zone changes. If we do it with the add period method, then it works correctly. And you can also combine multiple, you can add years, and you can also set negative values if you want to subtract a period. There are several other useful methods in dateutils. SetDate and SetDateAndTime are especially useful. Instead of parsing the date and relying on the format, which by the way, the date and time format are always the same. They are not based on the device format. If you want to change them based on the device format, then you can do it like this. Device default date format. Okay, it's important to remember that the data format and time format will never change unless you change them. Instead of writing it like this, which again depends on the date format, we can use sayDate. And if we want to add the time, then we will use sayDateAndTime. If we want to get the ticks value of January 1st next year, then we can do it with the year is we get the current year with date time get year. And we add 1st January and January 1st like this. Whenever you try to calculate the next Sunday, next Monday, or stuff like this, you will find yourself working with setDate and SetDateAndTime. Just go over some of the other methods. GetDayOfWeek_name returns the day of week of the past ticks value, and it returns its name. Returns getDaysNames, returns a list with the days names, and they are based on the device locale. GetMonthName, getMonths names, similar to the above methods. Is same day. It checks whether the two ticks values represent the same day. Number of days in month returns the number of days in the given month. Period between, previously saw, period between in days is similar to period between. However, instead of measuring the period in years, months, days, and so on, it starts from days. This means that the days component can be larger than 31, which is not possible in period between. Set date and time too, similar to set date and time, however with a time zone. Set date and set date and time use the current time zone. Text to string, it's the same as date and time modifier. Text to Unix time to text, and that's it.